Welcome to Field Event Showcase. I am your host, AJ White, and today we are joined by the newest member of the 80-meter hammer club, Rudy Winkler. Thank you for being here, Rudy.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Congrats on breaking the 80-meter barrier, being the fifth American to cross that mark. Could you take us through the meet and lead us and the lead up to the meet?
The meet was at a facility in Middletown, New York. Excuse me. It was run by Dan Mecca, the old coach at Manhattan College, who's now at West Point. It was at a facility, the 12th Rock sports facility, which is a new thing that they're trying to do, trying to put in a new track for indoor and outdoor events, and it's going to be this like big facility. It's going to be pretty cool. So the facility was cool leading up to the meet. Pretty standard training. I mean, nothing crazy. I'm kind of winding my training down now that I'm getting close to the end of my season. I only really have like one or two more meets left. Another one on the 27th at the same place, and then possibly one in October. And then I'll be taking some time off. So not going too hard, trying just to stay consistent and stay healthy through the last couple of weeks of the season.
Yeah, and did you think kind of leading into the meet, did you know 80 meters was there? Was it something like it was kind of a goal that you set after a lot of the big meets got canceled or something? Like you want to just go
Yeah,
ahead and try to
so
get that barrier out of the way this year, or?
um, coming out of last year and throwing, so I threw at Worlds in September last year. I threw a PR during the qualification, threw 77.06, and I knew based on like where my training was then and how I threw at that meet and how my training is going now, going into this meet, that um, I was capable of throwing 80 meters. I actually threw 80 at another meet in late July. That one was a little bit more low key though. Um, and I had two other meets before that I had thrown 77 high at. So I knew I was in shape to throw 80 going into that first meet. I threw 80 at that first meet. Kind of that one was more of like out of nowhere. I wasn't really expecting it. But then going into this one, my training was very similar. So I knew I was in shape to do it again.
Great. The pan. So, kind of speaking on like the summer being crazy with the pandemic and all that kind of stuff, it threw a lot of wrenches into athletes' plans. How did you kind of approach the pandemic? Did you change your training plan, change goals? Did you always plan on competing after all the kind of the big meets got canceled? Just kind of how did you approach this whole situation?
Yeah. So um, I actually got COVID-19 in April. So I had just started working in January at a job. I also work part time as a cybersecurity analyst. And in like 2 to 3 weeks before, like late March, everything went remote for that, and it was like, oh, like hopefully there'll still be some track meets. They'll be able to do something with like social distancing or whatever. And I was like pretty much about to buy my ticket to Mount Sac relays. And then we got all these emails from USATF that everything is canceled for the rest of the season until further notice. So it was like all of a sudden, all these plans I had to go to all these meets was put on hold. And then I got COVID, ended up having to take basically a full month off with getting it, having it for 2 weeks, and then giving myself some time to recover afterwards. So that put a wrench into the season. Before that, I was training basically like I am now, so I was in really good shape. I was expecting some really big throws early on, but obviously we kind of had to plan around it. And then getting sick, and then everything being shut down, just had to have some conversations with my coaches about like what equipment do we have available to us, what facilities do we have available to us, and what can we make work with what we have. And then slowly, as people started getting used to the pandemic being a thing, uh, it's the things that we needed slowly got opened back up for us to use, like throwing facilities, and then eventually gyms we're able to get into and get back to normal training. But the first couple months was a lot of like dipping and dodging, trying not to get caught going to certain fields here and there, and working with whatever equipment that we were able to salvage together from people we know and places that we know that we would be able to go without getting kicked out.
Yeah, and so you've actually experienced kind of COVID. Are you feeling like fully recovered? Hitting that 80 meters and all that kind of stuff. You feel like you're kind
Yeah.
of back to where you were beforehand?
Yeah. I mean, the recovery thankfully wasn't too bad for me. Um, I mean, it was a rough 2 weeks when I had the symptoms for it, but then after that, I got back into shape relatively quickly, which I'm pretty happy for. But it wasn't a pleasant experience by any means.
Understood.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit to earlier in your career. Now, unlike most kind of American hammer throwers, you started training the hammer pretty early in life, winning several youth and junior championships. Do you think that success you had with the lighter implements, throwing well over 70 meters as a junior, helped you kind of break through in 2016, where you almost improved like 8 meters in a year to kind of qualify for that Olympic team?
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think like the success I had with the lighter implements leading into that was a huge part of why I did so well in 2016. Um, and a lot of 2016 too, though, was like, it was really like the perfect storm of I was in good shape. My technique was coming together at the right time. And then like mentally, I was really confident about how I was throwing and everything kind of just happened all at once. And I threw when it mattered most, thankfully, and was able to qualify for the Olympics. In retrospect, it was like, I don't really know what I was doing to throw how I threw. And now I'm like very, uh, like focused. I know exactly what's going on with my technique and I know why I'm throwing 80, but at the time, like I threw 76. It was like, oh, that kind of just happened. And like, I wouldn't be able to replicate it for you if I tried, but it kind of just happened when it did happen. And it was like the perfect timing, which was great.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into my next question. So that was kind of a little bit of like not necessarily for you even that like that was the perfect storm. Like you caught the perfect throw at the perfect time.
Yeah.
It looked like after that breakthrough, it took you a couple years to kind of build back that consistency. I mean, you
Yeah.
won an NCAA title in 2017, U.S. championship in 2018. But looking at your numbers, it looked like 2019 is when stuff really started to click, where you kind of were 3 to 4 meters better than you were the previous 2 years. Did it just take a few years for that consistency to catch up, or did your training situation change in 2019, or like I said, did just something just click to where you kind of jumped up into that mid 70s range on a consistent basis?
Yeah. I mean, I just had some growing up to do. Like you said, it was like a perfect storm in 2016. But I definitely wasn't mature by any means. And I had a lot of maturing to do to get to a point where I could do that consistently. But then the next year, 2017, I won NCAs, but I had a back injury a lot of the year. So that made it tough to train. So the consistency wasn't there just because of that. My training wasn't consistent. I wasn't feeling great all the time. 2018, I started grad school, which took me some time to get adjusted to. And then 2019 was my first full like professional year where I've been living somewhere for more than a year and I was comfortable with what I was doing and how I was living. And it just took some time to get adjusted and get into that groove. And I've been on that same um, mindset, same groove, same everything since then, which is why I've progressed to the point I'm at now.
So is that kind of your plan moving forward as well? You want to stay in that groove, keep working with kind of what is your training setup right now? Who are you working with as far as like coaches or kind of what's like a day and like a week kind of schedule for you right now as far as training?
Yeah. So coach is the same as it's been since high school, Patty McGrath. Um, Working remote right now, but I go to see him whenever I can. Um, 3 times a week lifting, 3 times a week throwing. I'm living in Ithaca, New York, where I went to school. Luckily, have a place to train and lift. So things are basically normal, which is good. Living with my girlfriend who's going to law school right now, which has been great. And yeah, I don't just trying at this point to not really change much. You know, stick to what we're doing, get better at the things that we're doing well, and just keep improving from here. You know.
Yeah. So kind of looking forward, you mentioned earlier you have a couple more meets left.
Mhm.
So are you kind of peaking for these meets, or is this kind of just kind of riding out before you reset for to kind of get ready for the next Olympic cycle, like not Olympic cycle, but for the next year, year's prep, or kind of where are you at as far as that right now?
Yeah, and so like I said before, I mean, my season is definitely wrapping up. I wouldn't say I'm peaking, but I'm, tapering off of my lifting and throwing workouts so that I'm definitely more recovered and feeling in good shape for these meets. Um, Obviously, this season wasn't really as expected, so it was kind of hard to plan things out and like know exactly. Like I didn't even really know I was going to do this meet for sure until 2 weeks prior. So it wasn't something that I've had it in mind for a long time and was able to plan for. Um, just trying to at this point do as what best as I can at them and finish off the season strong, leading into next year. Take some time off and recoup and recalibrate and get ready for 2021.
Sounds good. So what are you kind of focusing on this off season? Obviously, your consistency's got a lot better. You hit a huge PR. Is there like what are you kind of planning on focusing on as far as like this off season and just kind of keep trying to improve?
Yeah, honestly, not really changing that much. I think too many people have success with what they're doing and then immediately try to change things and work on something new. But I think part of the reason I've been doing so well is because we've been working on the same things for so long and gotten a lot better at them. So there's still a lot of room for improvement in what I'm currently doing. So there's no reason to change what I'm currently doing. Just going to keep working on the same things and getting in better and better shape.
That sounds like a plan. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Rudy, for taking the time. Would you like to give a shout out to anyone and where people and let people know where they can find you?
Yeah, shout out to New York Athletic Club, who's been great about supporting me and the rest of the athletes that they sponsor throughout the whole pandemic. Shout out to my coaches, Patty McGrath, Roman Feldman. Shout out to my girlfriend, Olivia. And yeah, if you want to reach me, the only social media I really do is Instagram. My handle is throwrw. You can reach out to me, DM me on there if you want. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you for watching this FES check-in. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future content. Let me know who you would like to be interviewed next in the comments section below. And as always, let's grow the sport together.